We have a nature as human beings. We're not infinitely malleable by culture, which is a postmodernist claim, and a dangerous one. It's dangerous if we have a nature. Paglia has this idea that the reason that you come to university and you study the humanities, or the proper reason if you do that, is not to engage in premature and destructive criticism of something that you don't even yet understand, but to learn as much as you can about art and literature and poetry and drama and fiction and religious thinking. And this is all a kind of a, you can think about it as a, what is that? What is all that? It's art, you know, it's culture. Music belongs in that category. And like, what the hell, what about music? It's like everyone loves it, or almost everyone. It's a mystery. You listen to music and it's very meaningful. I mean, music gets people through some pretty dark times. Why? It's not obvious, that's for sure. You know, and in most cultures music plays a very central role in identity formation, and you guys, I think you'll probably find as you age that your favorite music will be the music that you listen to between the ages of 16 and 20. It's kind of like it imprints on you, and it defines maybe that defines a generation. And maybe, you know, in our tribal past, and this is highly likely, when you were being inculcated into the tribal culture, that was inculcated with dance and with masks and with music all at the same time. So you're invited to participate in this drama and to take your place in this drama, and to think of that as a representation of the objective world is just not right. That isn't what it is. It's an invitation to a drama. Now then the question might be, well, is the drama real? And the answer to that is, it depends on what you mean by real. I think that great dramas are more real than real. They're hyper real. They're hyper real because they provide guidelines about how to act that are abstract and even perhaps generic, but applicable across an extraordinary broad range of situations. So imagine this, you know, you get up in the morning, you do a bunch of things, and someone asks you what you're doing, what you did, and you tell them, well, the first thing I did this morning was open my eyes, and the second thing was think about whether I wanted to go back to sleep, and then, you know, I took off my blankets, and then I put my feet on the floor, and then I stood up, and I was blinking while I was doing all this, and I was also breathing, and then, you know, I looked for my clothes. And you really want to listen to that guy? You don't want to listen to that guy. It's like, why are you telling me that? I want you to tell me something interesting. Well, what is it that's interesting? And why isn't that interesting? It's not obvious. So then imagine the guy actually tells you a pretty good story, a little adventure. Probably he was doing something normal, something unexpected happened, he had to conjure up some new responses, and he either settled the problem or didn't settle the problem. Yeah, you're interested in that, especially if he settled the problem, because if he can tell you how when he encountered some unexplored territory he was able to sew it back together, then maybe you can do that when that thing happens, and that's pretty cheap wisdom for you. He had to go through all the aggravation of figuring it out, and all you have to do is listen. You know, and that's kind of a classic story. The classic story, roughly speaking, is there's a guy, woman, doesn't matter, going about their life relatively normally, something blindsides them, and they're in a state of chaos. Chaos is a place. Chaos is the place that you end up when what you're doing and the world stop matching. And the chaos can be of different degrees. You know, you could wake up and find that your house was burgled. You could wake up and find that your parent has Alzheimer's or some fatal disease, or that you do, or that your whole family was murdered, or that there's a war starting, or, you know, there's different degrees of chaos. And I think you can quantify the chaos by calculating how much of what you do and expect is likely to be disrupted by the event. Now, because the more disruption, the more destabilized you're going to be, which is why if someone tells you that you're going to perish painfully in 3 months, it's like, that's a bad one. You're really in an unexpected territory there. Nothing that you assumed that was real, roughly speaking, in the world is real anymore. We like to watch people in their normal life blindsided by something, experiencing this interregnum of chaos where they explore and gather new information and retool their character or retool the world, because either of those would work as a solution, and then come out the other side and things are better than they were to begin with, or at least as good. But better is better. That's a happy ending, right? That's a happy ending. That's a comedy, technically speaking. And so what you want your life to be a comedy. Not that it's supposed to be funny, because comedy doesn't have to be funny, technically speaking. It's just the opposite of tragedy. Tragedy is when you're going along pretty well and you get blindsided, and that's that. And you know, that can certainly happen. It happens to people all the time. But it's a comedy you want. Now, what I hope to provide you with is a magic code. You know, there was a book published a while back. Tom Hanks was in the movie. He was a Harvard professor who went around solving symbolic mysteries. Do you remember, what was it called? The Da Vinci Code. Everyone liked that. It sold a lot. And you know, it was full of little mysteries, and it was full of hints that there was more to the world than you think, and which is definitely true. And that, you know, there was a way of getting access to that knowledge, and that it would really be worthwhile. And people like that, they like that idea. And the reason for that is because it's actually, it's true. It's true. It's true like fiction is true. So okay, let's go back to the guy who's telling you about his morning. Well, he tells you something exciting. Well, then imagine that 10 people tell you something exciting. And then you extract out the pattern of them dealing with this problem from that. And so then you have that's what you do if you're an author. Right? Because in a book, you don't want the book exactly to be about what ordinary people do in ordinary times in their life. It's like, you already know how to be ordinary during ordinary times of your life. That's not useful. You know, you wouldn't watch a videotape of yourself. Imagine you videotaped yourself during a day, and then next day you watched that. It's like, God, who would want to do that? So what seems to happen in stories is that they distill. So they watch people watch people, and then they tell stories about what they see, but they leave a lot out of those stories. Everything that's boring, hopefully. And then more and more stories about exciting things get sort of aggregated, and then maybe a great writer comes along and writes something really, really interesting. Profound character transformations. And then you say, well, that's fiction. And then you say, well, that's not true, because it's fiction. But then maybe that's not right. Maybe it's more than true. Because who wants the truth? The truth is mundane reality, and you've already got that mastered. What you want is the distillation of interesting experience